Esquachel Hela. Thank you for coming, everyone, today. We'll go ahead and get started with a recording of this session on how to apply for the Mentor Apprentice Program and Mentor Apprentice Program connections. And then after that, we'll turn off the recording and have opportunity for people to ask questions. I will ask you to, I suppose, keep your videos off for the time being, and then we can have you turn them on again when the recording has ended. And my name is Aurora Scala. I'm a language programs coordinator here at First Peoples Cultural Council, and I'm joined by my colleague, Peter Underwood. Peter, do you mind? Thank you. Okay, so I just introduced myself. I was born in Souk, British Columbia, in Souk territory, and I have lived on this island my whole life. And Peter is our program navigator for the Mentor Apprentice Program. I'll let you introduce yourself, Peter.
Yeah, it's Esquachel Hela. I'm from Husainich. My name is Norman Peter Underwood. I go by Peter, and I've been the program navigator for a while now. And I'm also Norwegian, so I have most of my language experiences with the Norwegian language, but I'm learning Sinshathan. I'm glad to be learning as much as I can when I can.
All right. Thanks, Peter. And Anna Socha is also on this call today. She's also staff here, the program associate for the Mentor Apprentice Program, and she'll be responding to the chat today. So if anyone has any questions, you can put them in there, and Anna will try to reply as well. I want to acknowledge we are grateful for the speakers who have shared their languages, and we celebrate you. As mentioned, we'll be recording this session today. So you can actually hover over the screen in front of you for the links, and we'll save questions till the end.
And for those that are viewing the recording online, links will be available down below, or you can ask questions by email at map@fpcc.ca.
And we'll skip this slide because we just went through those introductions. So I just want to start by sharing a little bit about the First Peoples Cultural Council. We've been a Indigenous-run Crown Corporation since 1990. We serve 204 First Nations and urban Indigenous organizations. And we support the revitalization of 36 languages. And I'm excited to say that it used to be 34 languages, but recently Clallam and Pentlach got added to this list, so we could support funding for learning those 36 languages or initiatives involving those languages. We also provide, in addition to language funding, also arts and cultural heritage grants. And we provide training for, we provide funding for training, professional development, as well as resources and coaching. So I encourage you to check out our website. You can click on that link. And I'm imagining many of you have, since you made it this far to the webinar on how to apply. So our vision at FPCC is Indigenous languages, arts, and cultural heritage in BC are thriving. The knowledge and worldview is expressed through Indigenous languages, arts, and cultural heritage are valued as essential to our collective well-being and human rights. So who is eligible to apply for the Mentor Apprentice programs? You must be from a BC First Nations adults, ages 16 plus. You can be living on or off reserve in BC, and you don't have to be on a banned list. And you have to be wanting to learn one of the BC's 36 Indigenous languages. So the Mentor Apprentice Program is a one-on-one language program where a motivated learner and a fluent speaker spend time together in language immersion. We acknowledge that it requires a high level of commitment and motivation to do this kind of one-on-one immersion environment. It does increase fluency for adult learners. And it also does strengthen intergenerational relationships when you engage in this kind of, intensive immersion with, a community member. And we recognize the expertise of elders and mentors in this program. It can also lead to healing and enhanced well-being. Many people who've been through our program report that. So some outcomes from the Mentor Apprentice Program in British Columbia enables learners to connect with their language and increases their fluency. Increases community interest in language. We've had many examples of that where someone will apply and get a grant, and they start talking it up in their community or in their household, and other people kind of get excited and start engaging more with language revitalization, or even end up coming to the program as well. So there can be a real ripple effect when someone in their community starts engaging in this intensive process to become fluent. And also sort of part of the same point on that is that it can build language leadership and inspire others to go further and really become language champions. And it does have a positive influence on children in the community. When someone's learning the language, in a household that has children, oftentimes those kids start picking up a benefit of being around more of the language and learning and so on. Peter, do you want to talk a little bit about the role of mentors in the program?
The great thing about this program is no teaching experience is required of the mentor. It's really just like about speaking. It's not at all about writing and reading at all. So you don't need to be able to teach that. You don't need to be able to read and write in your language. The mentor only needs to spend time speaking with the apprentice, and we provide examples of activities for mentors and apprentices, what they can do in the language, and provide training and coaching in the program. Mentors are awarded $40 an hour for immersion hours as a honoraria for their time. And apprentices, no language experience is required for the program at all. We provide training on the learning, but also the mentors, they're there for you to start from the ground up, kind of learning like how an infant would. Administration of the grant is handled by the apprentice, including the application and reports. Apprentices are awarded $25 an hour for their hours after each 100 hours. There are two program streams within the Mentor Apprentice programs. The first is the main Mentor Apprentice program, which is 300 hours or about 8 to 10 hours per week. It's a 9-month program, or sorry, it might be more than that depending on the training, just a little bit. The Mentor Apprentice program Connections is 100 hours or about 5 hours a week. It's a bit more flexible in that way.
Can I just add to that, Peter, when you said, or it could be a little bit more than 9 months, Peter's just referring to, we give an in-person training session to the mentor and apprentice who are in the 300-hour stream, and an online training session for the mentor and apprentice who are in the 100-hour stream. And we do run usually about three or more training sessions around the province. So depending if you come to the first one or the second one, it could be a little later your start time because we want you to come to the in-person training session and then begin your immersion hours. So there's about a month of time where we're running training sessions around the province. So you might have 10 months if you happen to be in the first training session of the spring. Thanks.
Yeah, we'll get into the schedule a bit more in detail too. Sorry about that. The Mentor Apprentice program is, like I said, about 8 to 10 hours a week, spring to March 1st. March 1st is like a hard deadline for the end of reporting and finishing hours. It's a one-on-one language immersion program based on daily and traditional activities. Who's MAP for? Well, MAP is a little intensive. For language learners who want to actively pass on their language to others, such as in a career, as a language educator, or as a parent or guardian of young children, MAP participants complete 300 hours of language immersion with a fluent speaker, their mentor, over about 9 months. The criteria is for learners aged 16 to 50 who have a plan to actively pass on the language to others, learners who want to become teachers or parents, The MAP funding breakdown is after every 100 hours of immersion, apprentices will get 25 an hour. So for the 100 hours, it would be 2,500. For mentors, it'd be 40 an hour or 4,000. That would be split if you have more than one mentor. So the total is like 4,000. So if you're doing 50 hours with one mentor, they would get 40 an hour for those 50 hours, which would be 2,000. And then same for the other mentor, but it could be split in different ways too, depending on how much work you do with each of them. There are panel evaluations too, as part of the program, where you kind of seek feedback on your learning and encouragement, and you want to pick people for your panel evaluations to kind of uplift you, where you do like a presentation of your learning, and we provide honoraria for them, plus some refreshments for a total of 500. So the total per 100 hours is 7,000, and for the 300 hours total, it's 21,000. The Mentor Apprentice Program's Connections is the other program stream. It's 100 hours per program year, about 5 hours a week, and it runs April 4th to November 15th, 2025. So both these programs are next year too. It's also a one-on-one language immersion program based on daily and traditional activities. So it is like largely the same program with different kind of criteria. MAP-C is for those who maybe are looking for a more flexible program. It's a little bit more flexible than the other program, at least. It's for language learners who want to strengthen their connection to the language and who want greater flexibility and minimal reporting requirements. MAP-C participants complete 100 hours of language immersion with a fluent speaker over approximately 6 months. The program is for learners of any language level, learners who want to strengthen their connection, and learners who want to complete their mentor apprentice hours at a relaxed pace. The breakdown is very similar in terms of like the apprentice and the mentor getting paid at the same rates, but the Mentor Apprentice Program Connections, or MAP-C is the acronym, they don't have to do a panel, and so the total is a little different, and there's only 100 hours in the program with only one reporting deadline. Next, we have a few videos from the program, unless, Aurora, do you have anything to add before we get into these?
No, that sounds great. And I just want to say, I think everyone on this call is in for a treat because these apprentices really worked hard to put together some examples of the kinds of things they learned during their immersion hours. There is no requirement to make a video of your, of your learning. We do ask apprentices in the 300-hour-a-year stream to do a presentation at the in-person training. So they do like 15-minute presentations at the end of the first year. And if they go on to do other grants, the end of the second and the end of the third year. But there's no requirement to put together these videos. But we think this gives a good sense of the kinds of work people are doing to learn the hours, the kinds of activities they're engaging in.
All right, this next video is also from the program. Looks like it's from TikTok on Blueberry Jam.
Ausliquels slim te huehuamos. Slim set te huehuamos. We are picking blueberries.
Qualum te huehuamos lita clep lawful.
We are putting berries in the bucket.
Yukdum limich am gulum scoofly, you are my sunshine, Jim Samalgach. Am gulum scoofly, Lusam and Scotty, when Satlaha, Nemdi Welachwen, we all on, gul liesnin. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away.
Oh, those were so sweet. I'm so glad that the apprentices shared those with us. The program schedule, we can get into a bit more now too. The application deadline for all of you to apply for the program is October 15th. That's for both the MAP program and the MAPC program. Applications review by fpcc/PRC. So that means like the peer review committee or PRC. Applications will be reviewed in November. I guess I could share a bit more about the peer review committee. I think we might get into that later, but it's a committee of people that have experience in the program that review the applications, and they're the ones who determine those whose applications are successful. Successful applications or applicants will be given a shortlisting few set of steps, which we can get into later too. That just means a few more things to do for the application will be in December of this year also. And funding agreements will be due January 8th in the new year. And then training for MAP, this is where it gets a bit different, will be one of 3 training sessions in spring of 2025. And for MAPC, it'll be all online on the same day, April 4th, 2025.
Can I add a couple things to this slide too, Peter? One is if anyone has any questions about the application, you've started a draft application, and maybe you would like some input from staff, you'd like us to look over the application, give you some tips of how to strengthen it, or you have some real detailed questions about it, please do reach out to us in September about this, and we can, staff will look at that application individually. After the end of September, it's going to be hard for us to guarantee one-on-one attention. We will, of course, be able to still answer questions by email, but if you really want us to take a detailed look at your draft application, or once you've sent in your application, then please reach out to us in September so that we have time to look at that particular circumstance you're in for your application. And then the other thing I wanted to just say about this, sorry, maybe that's actually all I want to say about this for now. Yeah, you have until October 15th to send in your application. And that whole process would then mean starting the immersion hours in the spring of 2025. So it does take us a bit of time to review applications and set up funding.
And the last one on this list here is the deadlines, like the language hours and reports due to FPCC. For the Mentor Apprentice Program, 300 hours, that's the first column there. The hours will be done between May 2025, or as soon as you're done training, and March 1st, 2026. I know it feels far, but I'm sure time will fly by. For the MAPC, the hours are between April 4th, which is like the same day of training, up until November 15th. You can do those 100 hours, and reporting is due on November 15th, 2025.
One thing you can do to make sure that your application is going to be the strongest it can be is to read our funding guides. So there's a funding guide each for the MAP Mentor Apprentice Program, and also for MAPC Mentor Apprentice Program Connections stream. And you can read the funding guide, and that will help you to create a strong application. I thought of the other thing I wanted to say earlier too, which is, a lot of times people are curious what their chances of getting into the program is, what they are, and your chances are quite high. The last few years, we've been able to accept more than 50% of the applications we've received. So for example, last year across both programs, we received about 80 applications, and we accepted about 50 of them because of our funding constraints. So, we didn't have funding to fund all 80 applications, but we were able to accept more than half of them into the program. So I'd say you have, quite high chances of getting into the program if you apply. but you can make that more likely by reading the funding guides. Of course, the next part is to find a mentor who will work with you. Many of you probably already have an idea who that's going to be. It's very clear, you know who the person you want to work with is. Other people start their application and they don't know who they're going to work with. So, you know, it's not something we can do is guarantee setting people up with a mentor. That's something that the apprentice is responsible for doing, but we will always try to help. So if it's already September and you don't know who you want to work with, please do email us. And if we can, we have a lot of, across the organization, we have a lot of years of experience working with communities and a lot of contacts. And occasionally even mentors will reach out to us and say that they'd like to be in the program, but they don't have an apprentice. So please, if you're an apprentice and you don't have someone to work with, please do email us and maybe we can help you find someone.
We should also mention too that you can apply to be in the program with up to 3 mentors. So if you do find someone who you would like to work with, but they maybe don't want to commit to the full time, you could do partial hours with them and then find other mentors to fill the rest of the time with, depending on if you do the 100 or 300-hour program.
And I encourage that for your application as well, because sometimes, you know, maybe a mentor can get unwell during the program or something comes up for them personally, they can't keep mentoring. And so if you've already had the conversation with someone else, you don't need to tell us how many hours you're doing with them until afterwards. So it's okay if you put 3 mentors or 2 mentors down and then you end up only doing hours with 1 mentor, it's okay from our point of view. You just have to be clear with your mentors that that's the arrangement. Like you're hoping to do all your hours with this 1 mentor, but you'd like them to be on the funding agreement as a backup or that kind of thing, you know? So as long as you've been clear with everybody what their expectations are, it's fine to tell us, the funders, later when you report which of the 3 you applied with you really did the hours with, or what the breakdown was. Like it might be that you did, you know, a third of the hours with each of 3 mentors, but it could also be that you did 75% of the hours with 1 mentor, you know, and 25 with the other 2, or, you know, something like that, like a, you know, a split that was, you know, maybe, I don't know, 15 hours with one and, or 15% of the hours with one and 10% with the other mentor, something like that. So the next thing is to register on our grant portal. We call it the Grant Portal 2.0 and begin the application. And the reason we call it the Grant Portal 2.0 is that we're in the process of transitioning to a new platform for our grant portal. So I know many people on this call have probably applied for FPCC grants, or some of you may already have grants with us in various programs. And just so you know, we are moving to a new platform. So the Mentor Apprentice Program and Mentor Apprentice Connections Program are the first applications we're launching on our new grant portal system. So if you have a current grant, just, you know, keep reporting on your current grant and wait for directions from staff. But for this application, you do need to create your, you know, register on our new platform. And then, yeah, please email or call us if you have any questions. That email address again is map@fpcc.ca. Just a little note about the MAP funding guide. So the funding guide is just a more detailed document that outlines the program overview and eligibility. Who's eligible to apply for the program? What is the program timeline? And Peter already went over what the program budget is for both programs. There are application tips. And there's also, we kind of list the application assessment criteria. So you know how we're assessing applications, how the peer review committee is going to be thinking about your application. Yeah, thanks. And the funding guides, you can hover over those to get those links for the Mentor Apprentice Program funding guide for the 300-hour stream and the Mentor Apprentice Program Connections funding guide for the 100-hour stream.
Yeah, and just to note that they are different. What's true of one program might not be true for the other. There is a lot of overlap, but it's best to check each one if you're kind of curious about a specific detail.
One thing that really strikes me as the difference between the 2 programs, in addition to the number of immersion hours, is that the Mentor Apprentice Program Connections stream does have no upper age limitation on it. And the Mentor Apprentice Program 300-hour stream is for a specific demographic of age learners. So it is for learners 16 to 50 years old. The other difference I would see between the programs is that, one of them has these assessment panels of presentations of learning at the end of every 100 hours. And the Mentor Apprentice Program Connections doesn't have that requirement that you do a panel and presentation of your hours. Another key difference between the two programs is that the peer review committee is really going to be looking for how you really have a clear plan to pass on the language. And that's for the Mentor Apprentice 300-hour program. We don't have that criteria for the Mentor Apprentice 100-hour connections program. So if you want to learn the language, but you're not really planning to pass it on in any specific way afterwards, you would want to apply for the Mentor Apprentice Connections program.
Wait, before we get into this, sorry, I just wanted to note that the links have changed, but I popped them into the chat.
Oh, thanks, Peter. Okay, so FPCC, as I mentioned, is currently transitioning to a new improved grant portal, and all new applications for MAP and MAP-C must be on the grant portal 2.0. Please visit the info page for more information about this. And there's also some how-to guides if you need any assistance that way, or you can reach out to Peter and myself for support on if you're having any struggles at all with the system. Do you want to go through this part, Peter?
Yeah, just I think we covered it already, just noting that a new account will be needed because it is a new grant portal. If you didn't already have, if you are joining new to the program for the first time, there's nothing really to cover. But if you're already in our current system, you have to apply for the program in the new system, like Aurora mentioned. We do have a video guide on how to fill out the application. It's just going to be about 5 minutes right after this slide.
Peter, while you're working on that, maybe I'll answer one of the chat questions.
Great.
I did see a question in the chat about, do you have to be a member of a First Nations in BC if you are learning one of the 36 languages? So we do have a few languages in BC that have a range of where they're spoken that extends beyond BC. For example, Cree is widely spoken outside of BC, and there's sort of a small area of BC where that is the language of a BC First Nations. Or another example I'm thinking of is Anishinaabewin or Ojibwe. So in those cases, you are only eligible to apply for the Mentor Apprentice program if you're from a BC First Nation. I did see also in the chat, and we'll get more into this, after we stop the recording, we can talk about that specific example, that there was also, the person had commented that they're providing services in BC. So they live in BC, but their home community is outside of BC. So if I'm understanding that correctly, I would say, no, you would not be eligible to apply for this grant. But there is a section on the application where, if you're sort of going to explain to the peer review committee what your specific situation is, because we certainly understand that there can be very particular personal examples, and like some things that come to mind, for example, for me are we've had people in the program who are maybe adopted out of their community. They may not consider that they have much connection with their home community, but they are from a BC First Nation. So they would be eligible to apply for this grant, even if they're not on a banned list or don't have a status card. So that's just one example I could think of where, the person could apply for the grant. I also want to just acknowledge that this is a bit of a change in our funding because we have a new funder for this year and going forward for the Mentor Apprentice program. So in the past, sometimes people have gotten grants because it was more about their association with the language. Like if you lived in BC and you were speaking one of the 36 languages and you were First Nations, you could apply for the grant. So this is a bit of a change to our funding per our change in funder. But I'm happy to talk to the person who put that question in the chat, more details about their specific situation, because I just want to acknowledge like a lot of unique situations can come up about this. Thanks.
Welcome to this video tutorial. In this video, I will demonstrate how to complete an online application for an FPCC grant. The first step is to go to the website. You can enter fpcc.citizen1.ca to your internet browser and navigate to the website. Once you're at the login page, you can enter the email and the password that's used for your account, and then click Login. From the home page, you'll be able to see all the available grants listed in these squares. Each square will have the title of the grant and below a brief description about the program. To begin applying, click the title. From this page, you can find more information about the grant by clicking the links below. There's a link for the FPCC website and another link for the program guidelines. Before you begin applying for the grant, you need to complete a brief onboarding process. To begin, click the button which says Onboard. This screen will lay out the steps for the onboarding process. To proceed, click Continue. Page, you'll be able to view the terms and conditions for the specific program which you are applying for. You need to accept this policy to continue. By accepting this policy, you're also agreeing for FPCC to view your email and your name. To proceed, click I have read and accept terms and conditions, and then click I consent. If you do not consent, click I do not consent, and you'll leave the application process. Next, you'll need to verify your contact details. Click Continue. Click Continue again to proceed. On this page, you can check if your name is correct and your email address is also correct. You can also enter a preferred name. Once you're ready, click Confirm. Click Continue again. So you have successfully completed the onboarding process. To begin applying for the grant, click the button in the bottom right. So you'll now be able to start the application. You can click the Apply For button here. The first section of the application is an eligibility page. Here you can read the eligibility criteria. You'll need to answer the questions to proceed. If you are eligible, you can proceed to the rest of the application. You will see that new tabs appear for you to choose different sections of the application, as well as a Next button at the bottom of the page. The online application uses different types of questions. You can see there's text boxes, there are drop-down menus where you can select one or more options. There are checkboxes where you can have multiple answers, radio buttons where you can only select one. Clicking some questions may review more relevant questions. When you go to a different section of the application, you don't need to save between viewing a different section. Once you've completed all the questions, in the final section of the application, you will see a Submit button. Click this to submit your application. If you want to save your application and complete it later, you can click Save and return to Dashboard. Later, you can go back to this page here, scroll down, and you'll see your application under Draft Submissions. Click Continue Application to start it again. Then you'll be able to finish your application and submit it.
Great. So that video is available. We'll link it at the end of the video, but it's also available on the link here where video guides are available. There's also a guide on how to create an account. And of course, you can email us if you have any questions related to that. If you have a question related specifically to the grant portal, you can email grantportal@fpcc.ca and they'll be able to help you. So what's in the application? That video showed a brief bit about that, but we can get into more about what's kind of expected in the application now. From you or from the apprentice who is responsible for completing the application, we'll need a completed application form with the contact information, everything that's on the form, those kind of things, which includes a letter of intent on what you're intending on completing in the program, a resume or biography, and a letter of support for you and your mentor from someone in your community. So these two last ones were for the MAP stream only, the 300 hours, and as well as a schedule with a plan to complete the hours. There's a nice schedule builder in the application form too to be used. And from your mentor, we need their legal name, contact info, age range, and nation. Some kind of information like that will be in the application that you'll need to know of them when you're filling it out, as well as a letter of intent from them and your mentor's resume or biography, also only for the MAP stream.
And Peter, if I could just add to that, sometimes people get a little caught up with the resume, mention of a resume, because the peer review committee is really going to be less interested in every job that you've ever held and more interested in your involvement with community and culture and specifically language. So when we say resume and biography, it can be it can be also catered to what has been yours or your mentor's involvement with the community, cultural activities, and language. You're welcome to list jobs, but you don't have to list, all your job experience.
Yeah, I guess it is more about linguistic kind of accomplishments and language involvement and things. We don't really need to know if you worked at a deli.
But I think also other kinds of things, sometimes people list that, they were part of teaching a dance group in their community, or they were part of, I don't know, attending monthly dinners in their community or something like that. It might not be directly in the language, but they're still showing that they're sort of involved in culture and community. And that's especially, I would say, for the 300-hour stream, where it's really also how are you going to pass on the language? Because it kind of shows also that you already have avenues to pass on the language if you're already actively involved with your community.
Mm-hmm. So we have some tips for a strong application. The first is, once again, review the funding guide. We have a lot of information in there, and most questions can be answered in there, but again, email us if you have any more questions. In your application, provide as much detail as possible about your connection with your mentor, your goals for passing on the language, language learning goals for yourself, and schedule and making time for the program. So we really want to see that it's something that is a priority for you to complete, and that you have the capacity and the intention to complete the amount of hours in the program you're applying for. And again, you can reach out to us for one-on-one application support, or if you want your application reviewed before it goes to the peer review committee, you can contact us 2 weeks before the deadline, and we'll take a look at your submitted application and kind of give any feedback, and if you have anything you'd like to change about it, so long as you contact us 2 weeks before, we'll be able to give it a look. Just dotting some I's and crossing some T's and making sure that the application is as solid as I can get. The application form has we'll need you to completely fill in the apprentice information section, including your mentor's information. So make sure you have that ahead of time. And just a note that anything with a red asterisk is a required field. So it won't let you go to the next page unless everything's filled out on that page. So the system will catch anything you might be missing. If you do, you need to kind of get ahead and say, for example, you don't have your mentor's email address. You can, let's see if I can zoom. On the right side of the screen, there's a little, see that blue box? You can skip to the next section that way without having filled out everything, but it won't let you submit the whole application until it's all filled in. As far as language learning goals and outcomes, we'll need you to describe your current language level. And again, that can be any level, no matter where you're at. And to describe the language skills you hope to gain in the proposed 100 or 300 hours of the Mentor Apprentice work. And list the topics or areas of interest the team will focus on during these hours. Oh, here's like a bit of an example of how the schedule builder looks like. We ask that you outline a schedule that works for you and your mentor to complete immersion hours, and to consider that you're making sure you're budgeting enough time to stay on track. So if, for example, you take the month of August to go fishing or do anything that you might have in your life, make sure that you're budgeting for like 1 month off in your schedule. For panel evaluations, what I mentioned earlier is at the end of each 100 hours, we ask that people in the Mentor Apprentice program only host a presentation of their learning. And in the application, we ask to provide the names of 3 people who could be on your panel that have agreed to it. The presentations of your learning are for your benefit, so please invite those who will hold you up. It's really just a time for you to kind of go over what you've learned with your mentor, and like sometimes you can get some nice feedback out of it, like maybe work on pronunciation on XYZ. These are people who also speak the language, so they'll be able to like understand your learning and your presentation, and really just lift you up and make sure that your learning's on track. We do ask for 2 letters of intent for yourself and 1 from your mentor. They should describe the level of fluency for you and your mentor and availability and commitment for this work, as well as current involvement with the language. And yeah, we get asked for resumes and biographies, which we covered a bit. Resume for yourself and a biography or resume for your mentor. Again, it's can be a description of your involvement, as well as fluency level and any learning or work that you've done, and community involvement, like community dinners, like Aurora mentioned. The community letter of support is something that you don't write, but it's something that someone writes for you. This is only for the MAP program, and it's a letter that is ideally written by a respected community member. It is better to ask someone who is not closely related to the mentor and apprentice, like a spouse or immediate family member, to write this letter.
Just as some examples there, Peter, we do quite often get letters from chief or council, but it's not required. It doesn't have to be someone from chief or council, but that's often someone that gets asked. Or another thing is if either the mentor or apprentice is involved at all with an immersion school, we get quite a few letters from like a school principal or a teacher if either of them are affiliated with an immersion school. But it can also be someone in less of a formal context, like it might be the next door neighbor of the apprentice or the mentor who knows both parties and can speak to the fact that they'd be a good fit for each other and for this program. It's obviously less ideal if you don't know your mentor before you start, but we have had teams be very successful in the program. So sometimes teams will, maybe struggle to find someone who can really write a letter about this because they only just met their mentor. for the program for the purpose of the program, but that's not, that doesn't mean that you wouldn't be invited to the program, or it's not a deal breaker on your application not being successful if you didn't know your mentor in advance.
Yeah, there really is all sorts of people in the program. Some people are kind of a mix of that too. There have been people in the program that are learning from their grandparents and who they maybe only met a few times, but now they get to spend a lot of immersion hours together and get to know each other that way too.
And we've also had people who apply who are very closely connected, like they live in the same household, So sometimes we have people in the program who are spouses, and one is fluent and one is not. And we still can give them grants to learn the language in the context of their home. Or it might be, two siblings, one is fluent, one isn't, something like that. So there's no problem with the person you're mentoring with being an immediate family member. And in fact, that's sometimes a sign that you're going to be really successful because you already have a relationship with that person or spending time perhaps with that person on a regular basis. So even as we said, it's good if the letter of support is not from an immediate family member. We don't have that criteria for the mentor-apprentice relationship.
Also in the application, we do require that, unless otherwise indicated, the apprentice is the team administrator. There's a checkbox on the application too that says the apprentice agrees to be the administrator. This means that they're the primary contact for First Peoples Cultural Council and are responsible for all written correspondence directed by the team, and they're also responsible for being the primary point of contact with us and completing all MAP or MAPC reports, and by submitting to fpcc by the provided deadlines.
And I know we're close to are we on till 1:30, Peter? Or are we close to our time at 1? Can you just
We're getting
remind me?
close, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to say that it is important to remember for this grant, it is a learner-driven method, and the grant is really going to the apprentice. So if something happens over the course of the grant between the apprentice and the mentor, like between the relationship or whatever, the apprentice the grant follows the apprentice. So if the apprentice needs to change their mentors, we can do that, but it wouldn't be that the grant would ever stay with the mentor if they found a new apprentice. It wouldn't be like that. This is really a grant that is going to the apprentice primarily. So I hope that makes sense to everyone.
The next big tip is always don't forget to save as you're working. There's a save and return to dashboard button on the application. So if you do need to, take a minute and come back, say ask your mentor a few questions about their email address or address or something like that, you can save and then come back and when you have all the information. After applications are submitted, shortlisted applications, those who the PRC have accepted, will need to complete a few steps to get into the program. This will be in December of 2024. That's just getting a few more details about the application, dotting some I's, crossing some T's. Unsuccessful applications, the applicants will be notified and can apply again in another year. Once again, we're just going to look over the schedule. So the application deadline is October 15th. They'll be reviewed in November. Shortlisted applicants will get notice to complete a few steps in the shortlisting process December of this year. And funding agreements will be due to be signed on January 8th. We'll send those over before the break too, to those who are in the shortlisted process. Training is going to be in the spring of 2025 for both programs. It'll be one of 3 dates for MAP and then October 4th for MAPC. And the language hours are going to be starting in May or April. May for MAP and April for MAPC. For MAP, it goes until March 1st, 2026. And for MAPC, it'll end November 15th, 2025.
And I just want to say that shortlisting process, as long as you complete the steps to it by the deadlines we give, you are in the program at that point. So there's no part of the shortlisting process that is again, an assessment on you. We ask, for example, that you complete an assessment of where you're at. It takes about 10 minutes. It's a, like a form that you fill out of like where you're at with your fluency for the apprentice, but it's not at that stage anything to do with getting into the program or not. We just want to know when you started the program, where were you at with your language? And it's just like, radio button questions of where you're at with your language. But it's not assessment of like if you sort of like scored high or scored low that you would or wouldn't get into the program. Once we have shortlisted your application, you're in the program as long as you meet the deadlines.
We'll send all the information to about the shortlisting process for those that may get into that. If you have any questions now or during any time in the program, you can contact us at these provided numbers and email addresses. The main email for the Mentor Apprentice Program is map@fpcc.ca. Of course, you could reach out to either of us directly or give us a call or text at the numbers here. And for those watching, the links will be in the description down below. Thanks so much for attending the webinar. We're going to open up for some questions for those that are online right now, and then we'll stop the recording. But yeah, thank you so much for watching.